So we did get a question. We're going to answer it here. This will be our question of the day from Caston on the website. He sent us a message, said, do you guys think that we passed on Shedeur 6 times because of his skill? Or do you think we passed on him because of his character? I'm a new listener to your podcast, and you are the first Browns podcast I actually like and feel like I get good info out of it. So first of all, thank you, Caston, for the kind words. We appreciate you listening to the show. And Justin, why don't you take this one first? Why don't why do you think the Browns passed on Shedeur 6 times before they finally traded up to get him in the 5th?
I think I don't think that it has anything to do as far as like talent wise, as far as like 5th round, you know what I mean? And like previously, I think as far as once you hit the 2nd round, I think that he was open for business as far as talent wise, skill set. I wouldn't even have been upset if they traded back in. We joked that we were okay with them taking him in the 1st. I was, at least. I'll say that. I think that there was just a lot of noise around him, man. You know, I think the fact that he didn't have an agent, I think the fact that, 4 months before his dad was, saying what teams he was going to let him go to. And I'm glad all that kind of went away because, it kind of did give him a chance to actually like just do his thing. But I think it damaged his draft stock. And I don't think it was his talent. I think it was just a lot of noise. Unfortunately, it probably cost him a lot of money, but he still has the opportunity to go out there and, ball out, potentially earn a starting spot on this, Browns roster.
Yeah. Kenny, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the biggest thing with Shedeur, it was his attitude. And I just don't think he was as prepared as he could have been for a lot of the interviews. So it just didn't sit well with a lot of teams other than the Browns. But it came to a point, like Andrew Barry said, it came that his value when it came to the 5th round was just more than what the draft choices were worth that they traded for him. And it was a good match for the team because if you look at anything, he's got the elite ball placement skills. And that was very noticeable in training camp with some of those completions in the back corner of the end zone.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think the pre-draft process did him 0 favors. And I don't think it was his character, like Caston was asking here in the question. It's not so much his character. And I know there was, the rumors that he was coming across brash and arrogant and things like that. And, just since he's been in Cleveland, I haven't gotten that sense. It doesn't seem like anything he's ever said. None of the teammates, none of the coaches have ever indicated that he is like that at all. Everybody says he's a great guy. He just seems very confident in himself and his abilities. And, I talked to Jake Burns about it, and his viewpoint on it was more like his handling of the pre-draft process, Justin, like you said, no agent. He might have gotten some poor advice from his dad on how to go into these interviews, act like you're the best one out there when it, not that his talent was not good. Obviously, it was great on tape, and people had him pegged as a 1st round talent. Maybe, you could debate where it was early, late, maybe 2nd round, whatever. But the talent was not overwhelmingly elite to the point where teams would just ignore all that other stuff. So I think that really contributed to the fall.
I like a little chippy. I like a little confident. You know what I mean? I have no problem with that. Believe in yourself. You know what I mean? But also stay hungry.
Right. And I think he is. I think he's very hungry.
And let it be your drive. I'm very cool with all that. Nobody had a problem with Baker Mayfield when he was like that. So I think it's let's keep an open mind here. I like that. I like a little chippy, and I want a guy to be confident. I've seen a lot of guys come in here and not be confident and leave very quickly. So a guy that believes in himself, I'm fine with that.
And there is I've heard this from a lot of people, and I think there's a lot of truth to it. I think there's a hesitancy on NFL teams to bring in guys who have already achieved celebrity status, which he has. He's got that. Uh-huh. And then if things don't pan out, it's very difficult to keep a guy like that. Not on his part, none of his fault, but it's difficult to keep a celebrity as your backup quarterback or your 3rd string quarterback. Whenever, they've got this massive following, this whole group of people that are just going to be tearing you down if you're not putting him out there on the field. That contributed to like Colin Kaepernick and, some of these, Tim Tebow, some of these other guys who the distraction, not necessarily from the player, but from the fans of having that person as a backup kind of leads teams to avoid them.
Yeah, I was surprised that someone who runs the Browns backers that with Baker Mayfield and we'll call them Baker Bros, right? The guys that just came in to be Browns fans for Baker Mayfield. I was surprised with the Shedeur fans that come through. It's almost like a tenfold of the same thing where guys are just so out there. But yeah, he does bring a lot of clout social media wise. And that may have scared some teams off. I don't know if that was the Browns' idea, but that's something, man, for sure.
I think you're going to get that too with a lot of these high profile players. I mean, Justin, I'm sure you remember the Brown Tiger. We got a lot of Houston Texan fans or Clemson fans coming in when we traded for Deshaun Watson. So kind of just is what it is. It comes with the territory. But Caston, I hope that answered your question. And yeah, if anything else comes up that changes some opinions, we'll be happy to share it out here on the podcast.